In the next 18 months, nearly 1 million homeowners are going to get a letter that could force them to sell their house. And the crazy part? Most of them still think everything's fine. If you own property, if you're trying to buy, or if you've been renting and wondering if you'll ever afford a place of your own, what I'm about to show you is going to change how you see the entire UK housing market. Because what's happening right now isn't just a slowdown. It's a complete restructuring of who gets to own property in this country. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which side of this divide you're on and what you need to do about it. But first, make sure to subscribe to our channel because we're bringing you the real story behind the headlines that everyone else is missing. Alright, here's what nobody wants to admit. The UK property market has literally broken in half, and the two sides are moving in completely opposite directions. Up in places like Newcastle, Leeds, and Manchester, houses are selling faster than they have in years. We're talking about properties going under offer in less than a week, sometimes with multiple bidders fighting over the same place. Prices in the Northeast have jumped nearly 8% in just 12 months. Meanwhile, down south in London and across the Southeast, it's like someone hit the pause button. Asking prices are creeping downward month after month. Sellers are sitting there watching their properties gather dust on Rightmove, and the ones who do get offers are having to accept way less than they expected. Think about that for a second. The gap between what property costs in different parts of the country has become so extreme that people are genuinely asking themselves if staying in the South is even worth it anymore. This isn't about lifestyle preferences. This is pure mathematics forcing people's hands. The average salary in London isn't nearly high enough to justify mortgage payments that are double or even triple what you'd be paying further north. Someone in Manchester paying off a £200,000 mortgage is genuinely living better than someone in London struggling with a £400,000 mortgage and an hour-long commute each way. Buyers are finally waking up to this reality. Supply in London has shot up nearly 19% compared to last year. More and more sellers are flooding the market trying to get out. But actual sales are down 28% year on year. You've got all these people listing their properties, but nobody's buying at the prices sellers want. That creates a standoff. And in a standoff like this, there's only one direction prices can go. But this isn't just about regional differences. It's about a financial squeeze facing nearly 1 million families. Now, here's where things get really serious. And this is the part that's going to affect hundreds of thousands of families. Between right now and the end of 2027, roughly 800,000 homeowners are going to watch their fixed-rate mortgage deals expire. These are people who locked in rates at 2%, maybe 3%, when borrowing money was basically free. Now, they're coming off those deals and staring at rates of 5% or higher. Let me make this real for you. If you borrow £250,000 at 2%, your monthly payment sits around £1,120. When that deal expires and you have to remortgage at 5%, that same mortgage suddenly costs you £1,460 a month. That's an extra £340 every single month, over £4,000 a year for families already stretched thin. That's not just uncomfortable, that's unaffordable. And if you think that sounds rough, here's what makes it even worse. If you don't remortgage and you just fall onto your lender's standard variable rate, you could easily be looking at 7% or even 8%. At 7%, that mortgage is now costing you £1,750 a month. You're suddenly paying an extra £630 compared to your old deal. That works out to over £7,500 a year just in additional interest. For tens of thousands of homeowners, especially the ones who bought at the peak of the market in 2021 or 2022, this just isn't sustainable. They stretched every penny. Now they're facing an impossible choice: find an extra few £100 every month somehow, or sell up before they're forced into an even worse position. This is exactly why we're seeing supply increase so dramatically in certain areas. It's not that people suddenly decided they want to move. It's that they literally have no other option. But this isn't just a cost increase. It's a generational wealth transfer happening in real time. There's a massive generational divide happening right under our noses. If you're over 65 years old, there's a 61% chance you own your home outright with no mortgage hanging over your head. You're sitting there, watching your property value tick up slowly. Life's pretty comfortable. But if you're under 45, you're almost certainly carrying a mortgage, and you're the one feeling every single rate rise like a punch to the gut. Younger homeowners are holding the bulk of the UK's mortgage debt, which means they're getting squeezed the hardest. This isn't about blaming anyone. It's just the reality of when people bought and under what economic conditions. But what it does mean is that the pain of higher interest rates is concentrated almost entirely on one specific group of people. And that group is now flooding the market with listings because they physically cannot afford to stay in their homes. As younger homeowners buckle, something else shocking is happening, a mass exodus that's changing the rental landscape forever. Now, let's talk about what's happening with landlords, because this is where things get really interesting. Last year, 19% of landlords sold properties compared to just 8% who actually bought new ones. Recent surveys are showing that 41% of landlords are either planning to reduce their portfolios or exit the market entirely within the next few years. Nearly half of all landlords are considering selling up and getting out. Mortgage rates have more than doubled for them, too. They can't just pass all of that cost straight onto tenants because there are real limits to what renters can actually afford to pay. Then you pile on all the regulatory changes. The Renters Reform Bill is shaking everything up in a massive way. The bill scraps Section 21, which means landlords can no longer evict tenants without having a specific legal reason. From a landlord's perspective, this adds serious risk to the equation. If you end up with a problematic tenant who stops paying rent or trashes the place, it's now much harder and way more expensive to remove them. The process takes longer, costs more in legal fees, and there's no guarantee you'll get your money back. For the accidental landlord, the one who just kept their old flat, this is often the final straw that makes them decide to sell. This landlord sell-off is creating a bizarre, twisted situation, the perfect storm that hits renters and helps first-time buyers. What's absolutely wild about this landlord exodus is that it's creating a perfect storm with two completely opposite effects happening at the same time. On one hand, rental supply is shrinking, which is pushing rents up in loads of areas. Tenants are competing harder for fewer available properties. On the other hand, all those former rental properties hitting the sales market are adding to the supply glut, which is pushing house prices down in some regions. It's this bizarre situation where renters are paying more while house prices are falling. In a weird way, the landlord sell-off is actually creating opportunities for people who've been locked out of home ownership for years. Former rental properties now make up a huge chunk of the listings. These tend to be well-maintained homes in decent locations, and they're being snapped up by first-time buyers and families. While the overall market is clearly struggling, there are still pockets that are absolutely thriving. Cities like Manchester, Bristol, and Glasgow are seeing serious growth. Buy-to-let mortgage applications actually surged by 32% in early 2025. Yes, you heard that right. While nearly half of all landlords are planning their exit, a smaller group of professional investors are actively coming in and buying up properties at reasonable prices with rental yields hitting 6 to 7%. The key is professional due diligence and focusing on the North and the Midlands, where the numbers still work. First-time buyers are also seeing real opportunities emerge. With landlords selling up left and right, there are more properties available, and some sellers are desperate enough to accept lower offers than they would have even 6 months ago. Transaction volumes being down 28% means there are fewer buyers competing for each property. The key is being patient. Properties confidently listed at £300,000 6 months ago are now being quietly reduced to £280,000. That's real money saved. But even as we see opportunity, we have to talk about the victims of a broken system, the thousands who were sold a dream that turned into a financial trap. What absolutely nobody is talking about enough is the Help to Buy aftermath that's affecting thousands of homeowners right now. Back in 2013, the scheme funneled buyers toward developers who knew they had a captive market. A lot of those developers added a premium to the asking price, sometimes 10 or even 15% above what the property was actually worth. The government loan helped with the deposit, but buyers were still massively overpaying. Now, fast forward to 2025, and loads of those buyers are finding out their properties haven't appreciated the way they expected them to. Some are actually worth less than what they originally paid. Imagine buying a new build flat for £250,000 with Help to Buy. You've been paying your mortgage diligently for 7 years. Now, when you go to remortgage or try to sell, you find out it's only worth £230,000. You've been paying for 7 years, and you actually have less equity than when you started. That's the reality for thousands of people right now. The developer premium they paid has completely evaporated, and they're stuck. They can't sell without taking a loss, and they can't refinance easily because the property doesn't appraise high enough. It's a trap, and it's one of those unintended consequences that just wasn't properly thought through. The only way out is to understand what's freezing the entire market solid and what the smart money is betting on right now. Buyer confidence is at multi-year lows right now. There have been months recently where activity dropped by over 60% compared to the same month the previous year. That's not a slow market. That's a market that's basically frozen solid. Buyers don't want to commit because they're worried prices will keep falling. Sellers don't want to drop their asking prices because they still remember the peak of 2021. So, everyone's just waiting for someone else to blink first. So, what's actually going to happen over the next few years? Let's look at what the experts are predicting, because some of these forecasts are genuinely surprising. Savills, one of the big property consultancies, is forecasting total growth of 24% over the next 5 years, from 2025 through 2029. The theory behind this is actually pretty straightforward. Wage growth is expected to increase, and the Bank of England is expected to gradually reduce the base rate down to around 4%. As rates stabilize and wages gradually grow, confidence will slowly return to the market, and transaction volumes will pick up. Once transactions increase, prices will naturally follow. The opportunity window for both buyers and investors is right now. During this period of uncertainty, when everyone else is frozen and not taking action, that's precisely when you can negotiate the best deals. In the end, this isn't about doom and gloom. It's about knowing exactly where you stand in this massive UK housing shakeup. What all of this actually means depends entirely on where you personally sit in the market right now. If you're a homeowner coming off a fixed-rate deal, you need to be proactive starting right now. Talk to a mortgage broker today. Understand what rates you qualify for. If the numbers genuinely don't work, it might be better to sell now while you still have decent equity rather than waiting until you're forced to sell from a much worse position. If you're currently renting and thinking about buying, do the actual math for your specific situation. Don't buy just because you feel like you should. Buy because the numbers genuinely make sense for your circumstances and your plans for the next 5 to 10 years. If you're a landlord, you need to make an honest decision. The market has fundamentally changed. If you genuinely can't make the numbers work with 5% rates and increased regulation, then selling might honestly be the right call. The landlords who are exiting right now are often the ones who are barely breaking even anyway. The single biggest thing to watch is transaction volumes. If sales start picking up in a meaningful way, that's a leading indicator that confidence is returning. If they stay suppressed, we could see further price weakness. What we're witnessing is a fundamental reshaping of property ownership across the entire UK. The old rules are dead. The new game is about timing, strategy, and understanding the numbers. What part of this UK housing crisis shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below.